when they told me there was a statue up there, I was surprised. I was amazed at its size. I was amazed at how well it was done. And the men and boys having been executed brutally. When I saw bodies of, one man was 99 years of age. There was a young boy of 14. The government really didn't want us to see the truth of what was happening here. I sincerely believe that if Reçak had not happened, I think we would be sitting today in a province of Serbia. Milosevic accepted my nomination because he wanted an American, and he wanted Walker because he thought he knew me. I think he thought I was going to do what he told me to do. One of my most memorable days is the Day of Independence. When I was here, before that, I was critical of Hashim Thaçi, I was critical of Kadri Veseli. Horrible injustice. I volunteered to go now, today,
Yes.
because I say, look, I'm almost 90 years of age. I might not live until the prosecution finishes its case. He was a young San Francisco hippie-looking young man with a lot of hair. But so much has been done for the minority communities here. Spain has the problem with Catalonia,
Yes.
with the Basques, and yet they come in to tell Albin Kurti that you've got to do more for the minorities here. What are they talking about? A month before the election, I saw Bejat Batsoli and he told me Donald Trump is going to win. I told him he was crazy. He was right, I was wrong.
Përshëndetje shikues të nderuar, në emisionin e sotëm e kam një të ftuar të veçantë, do të realizojmë një intervistë me William Walker, i cili kishte qenë përgjatë luftës në Kosovë, shef i misionit të vëzhgimit të OSBE-s. Me zotrin Walker do të flasim për masakrën e Reçakut, luftën e Kosovës, por gjithashtu edhe për zhvillimet politike në Kosovë, por edhe në botë. Mr. William Walker, it's a pleasure to have you here.
It's my pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Mr. Ambassador, a few days ago you published your book, Reçak, History of a War Crime. On the day you promoted the book in Dukazini bookstore, when you entered the bookstore, everyone stood up and applauded you. And you, I think, spent 2 hours signing autographs for people there. The people of Kosovo felt indebted of what you have done for us as a country, and how do you feel when you receive all this love from Kosovo people?
Very appreciative. I mean, I'm in the United States, I'm just one of 300 million people. Here I feel a certain specialness, and anyone who experienced that, I think, would be very appreciative of the attention that is paid to me.
Yes, how were these days in Kosovo with the promotion of the book?
Well, I think it's been successful. As I've said over and over again, I promised the village of Reçak 25 years ago that I would write a book and it would be called Reçak. And unfortunately, it took me 25 years to make good on my promise. But with great help from Ekrem Luka and Luka Gini, both in producing the book and now in distributing the book. I think it's been successful. They might have produced more copies than they're going to sell, but I think it's going well.
Yes, and there is a lot of interest for your book, Mr. Ambassador. In the book, you tell many stories for what happened in Kosovo War in 1998 and 1999. Among them, you describe how the decision was made for you to come to Kosovo. You were cutting the grass, you write on your book, and in your yard in Rockwell when you have received the call.
That's correct. I served for the first time in the Balkans in Croatia, in eastern Slavonia. as the head of the mission there by the United Nations. And I was there just at the end of that mission, so I got my first taste of the Balkans. And I went home, and I expected to go on another assignment to Latin America, which is where I've spent most of my career. But I didn't get any news as to where I was going until I was out mowing the lawn, as you say, one afternoon, and I received a call from the Deputy Secretary of State, Tom Pickering, and he told me that I was coming back to the Balkans. When they told me earlier, when they told me I was going to Vukovar, I had no idea what Vukovar was. Earlier in my career, when they told me I was going to Naha, the capital of Okinawa, I had no idea what Naha was. This time, at least, I recognized the word Kosovo, which I now call Kosovo, but I had very little knowledge of what had gone on here. In my experience in Croatia, I got to talk to Tudjman, president of Croatia, and I also got to talk to Slobodan Milosevic a couple of times. I was doing something, keeping them apart, keeping peace in Croatia. And as I say, I got there at the end of the mission, so neither Tudjman nor Milosevic thought of me as an enemy. And when I was told the OSCE had accepted my nomination by the State Department to be the head of the Kosovo verification mission, I was told that Milosevic accepted my nomination because he wanted an American, and he wanted Walker because he thought he knew me from Croatia. He thought I was a friend of his.
Yes, and from what I have read, he thought that you are going to protect Serbs.
I think he thought I was going to do what he told me to do. Milosevic, I describe him in the book, and I describe various descriptions of Slobodan Milosevic, that he was a pure politician, would do anything to promote his political agenda, that he was a criminal who had made a lot of money and was going to protect himself and his friends who had made a lot of money with him. I mean, all sorts of interpretations as to who Slobodan Milosevic was. I still don't know who he was. I know he felt that if he told you something, you had to accept that as the truth. No deviation. Walker, I'm telling you that the Albanians are not a majority in Kosovo. You might have heard, Walker, that there's more Albanians in Kosovo than other communities. That's wrong. And he expected me to accept his word, that he had many Albanian friends, that he was doing all he could for the Albanian cause here. Total lies. But anyway.
Yes, and what happened when you came here in Kosovo? How were your first days in Kosovo? In which places you went?
Well, I came to Kosovo in the middle of winter, such as today. The weather was very much like what it is today, overcast, cold, some snow on the ground. I saw a lot of garbage in the streets, a lot of wild dogs running around. And I remember thinking, I had just come from Belgrade, and, Belgrade's a relatively modern city. And I thought, wow, this part of Serbia, this province of Serbia, does not seem to have the same sort of attention paid to it as the rest of Serbia. And I thought that maybe Belgrade was not taking care of Serbia, taking care of Kosovo. Yes. But, I came here with all sorts of worries. We worried we were bringing in maybe 2,000 internationals to work here. And where were we going to find the interpreters? Where were we going to find 2,000 young people who spoke English or who were Serbs or who were Albanians who spoke English? And we thought we were going to have a difficult time finding interpreters. We were wrong. We had an oversupply of applicants because so many people here did speak English, young people.
Yes.
And there were other worries we had that I had no reason to worry, but we did.
And which was, before we go to talk for the Reçak massacre, which was maybe the first crime of Serbia that you saw in Kosovo?
Well, you know, when we came in, we came in with pledges, and I kept telling the verifiers that we were here neutral. We were not to take sides. We would tell the truth about what we saw, but not slant it. And we also were trying to get our young people out into the major cities, Prizren, Peja, Mitrovica.
Yes.
And then we wanted to get the verifiers out into the villages so they could see what was happening at all levels. And, you know, we quickly discovered that there were a lot of abuses taking place here. Among the first meetings I had were with the families of the disappeared. I first did it with the families of the Albanians who had disappeared over the last few years. And that was a meeting in which I heard a lot about family members who had been pulled out of their houses and no more was heard of them. And then following that, I had a meeting with the Serb families of the disappeared. And again, I heard a lot about bad things that had happened to Serbs. The two meetings were very different. The meeting with the Albanians were more just that, people telling me that their family members had disappeared. The meeting with the Serbs was, it's in the book, much more attacking me and the international community, and why aren't you doing more, and you know where the disappeared are, why don't you, go out and take care of those terrorists, the KLA. It was a very different atmosphere in the two meetings. So when I pulled up to the Grand Hotel, both meetings were held in the Grand Hotel. When I pulled into the Grand Hotel in my limousine, my orange limousine, there was a group of Serbs standing in front of the hotel chanting very bad things about Walker, very bad things about the OSC, very bad things about the United States. And I remember thinking, is this how they ask for my help? By cursing me? And that's what they did. And the meeting itself was not very positive.
Yes, and you went to Reçak, Mr. Ambassador, on January 16th. If you can tell us what you saw there.
Well, I've repeated endlessly what I saw there, which was a village that had been not destroyed physically, but had been shelled and attacked and overtaken by the police and by the military who had surrounded Reçak from the hills. And then they had moved down. They treated the villagers very brutally, but what I saw was the evidence of the killings of 45 men and boys, I believe one woman. And I've seen a lot of scenes of violence, but this was so concentrated in a village, and the men and boys having been executed brutally. And we had been told the night before that there had been a battle between the KLA and the army, and
when you...
a number had been killed who were KLA fighters. No Serb soldiers had been killed or police, but 40-some KLA had been killed. And when I saw bodies of, one man was 99 years of age, there was a young boy of 14, and these were obviously not soldiers. These were villagers. These were men who got up that morning thinking they were going out to work and instead were slaughtered.
And how you felt when you saw that it was a different story for what you thought in the beginning?
Obviously, very upset with the government telling me a completely false story. And that was the beginning of realizing that the government really didn't want us to see the truth of what was happening here. But after a few weeks, a month, not only I, but the overwhelming majority of the verifiers living in villages, living in prison, living in Mitrovica, were seeing what was being done to the civilian population here.
Yes, and Mr. Ambassador, at that time you were an experienced ambassador because you served in a lot of states before Kosovo. But was it the first time to see so many massacred bodies, the Reçak?
Well, the answer yes, but I had seen my most vivid previous experience was in El Salvador, where I was ambassador for 4 years, and I also served there previously for 3 years. It's a very, because of a civil war, it was a very violent country, a lot of deaths, the killing of 6 Jesuit priests who were thought to be leftist by the military. That was a pretty violent scene too. But in El Salvador, you saw a lot of 1 bodies, 2 bodies in the street, killed by death squads. Yes. Or killed by the guerrillas. So I had seen a lot of death. Reçak was the single most concentrated vision I saw, and it was right there on the ground. It had happened just a few hours before we got there. I reacted, maybe overreacted. Yes. In the words of some of my critics, but I just told the truth.
For that.
Okay.
Yes, and do any particular conversation with the people there stand out in your memory?
I'm sorry, any specific?
Yes, any particular conversation that you had with people on Reçak on that day? Did any conversation stand out in your memory?
My first task was to actually reach the village, be briefed by some KVM verifiers from prison who had seen the events the night before and were now in the village. They told me what I was going to see, and that's what I saw at the beginning.
Yes.
But when I saw it, I said, I want to talk to some of the villagers. And obviously, I spoke to several women, wives who lost their husbands, mothers who lost their sons. And the stories were all consistent as to what had happened the day before. So those were the important conversations I had. Look, and this is often forgotten, but I have said it in the press conference that I'm so famous for.
Yes.
I said, look, I'm saying this was a war crime. And even if these were KLA soldiers, they were captured. They obviously were disarmed. They were taken away late in the afternoon under guard, armed police and soldiers. And they ended up dead. They were executed. So even if they were KLA fighters, you don't kill prisoners unarmed prisoners. That's a war crime. But if they were civilians, it's even worse. But don't tell me these were KLA fighters. It's still a war crime what happened to them.
Yes, and you said that was crime against humanity. And for that, you had a lot of criticism from, if you can tell us for that, for the criticism that it was at that time for you, for saying that that was a crime against humanity.
I'm really not sure I understand that criticism. Did I violate some technical interpretation of the words crime against humanity? I don't think so. To me, crime against humanity is exactly what I saw there. Soldiers, police, killing unarmed villagers after taking the city, taking the village, gathering the men, taking them away under arms, and having them turned up, executed. I'm sorry, I don't understand the criticism that this was not a crime against humanity.
Yes, and who had a
the criticism?
Yes,
who
from
criticized
who came?
me?
Yes, who criticized you?
Very few people criticized me
Okay.
to my face. I think in the book I explain my French deputy. I think he disagreed completely with what I said.
Yes, and what happened in Reçak, Mr. Ambassador? What impact did it had to you?
To me, obviously,
Yes.
it's been something I think of every day in the last 25 years, 26 years. Is something I feel guilty that I didn't get this book out earlier. At the same time, I think now is a good time to say this is what happened on that day, the context within which it happened, why it led to what it led to, which was the bombing by NATO, and what that led to, which was the liberation of Kosovo and the independence of a new country in the middle of Europe. That doesn't happen very often, but it did happen, and I think the line is very direct from what happened in Reçak to where we are today. I sincerely believe that if Reçak had not happened, if the world attention had not been drawn to it by me saying what I said or Milosevic overreacting and continuing to lie about it, I think we would be sitting today in a province of Serbia, not in an independent country called the Republic of Kosovo.
Yes, Mr. Ambassador, and how difficult was for you to see all the massacres that happened after the Reçak? Because most of massacres in Kosovo happened after the Reçak massacre.
Well, after Reçak, I really think Slobodan Milosevic and the government in Belgrade underestimated the impact of what went out as a result of Reçak and their mistake in trying to present it as something that it wasn't. Milosevic continued to make mistakes after Reçak, including committing further massacres, including dealing with the bodies from Reçak in a very despicable way. I think what happened after Reçak was not just on orders from Belgrade, but on the stupidity and the reaction of someone like Judge Marinkovic, who was the federal prosecutor from Niš. She acted as Milosevic acted by just telling lies. And then, as I say, Milosevic declared me persona non grata, which I think was a mistake on his part. That just drew more attention to what was happening in Kosovo. And then his big mistake was going to Rambouillet and then refusing to sign. He refused to sign a document that was in favor of Serbia. As I say, if he had just initialed it, we would still be in a province of Serbia. But he didn't. He decided, hey, I'm telling you that I'm not going to sign by, and it was stupid.
Yes, unfortunately for us.
Fortunately for truth.
Yes, Mr. Ambassador, in Reçak you come back often. You were also on this anniversary in 15th January, and you gave very emotional speech. You said that you would gladly accept Kosovo's citizenship. Yes. Did you have an offer, you said, from President and or Prime Minister?
The first I heard of that was a year ago. No, 6 months ago. Prime Minister was in New York, and we had lunch with a whole bunch of people. And at the end, he asked me, he said, do you have Kosovar citizenship? I said, no, I don't think so. And he said, oh, you know, we have to do that. When I saw the president this week, she asked me the same question. And I said, no, I don't. But I referred to the conversation with Prime Minister Kurti, and she said, well, granting citizenship is something that the presidency does,
Okay.
and so, and there's a process, and so anyway, it's there, yes.
Yes, and the most emotional part was of this speech was when you said that you would be proud for your body to rest in Reçak.
Again, this was something that came up some time ago in an interview I think I had with the press, and I think we talked about the statue, or we talked about Reçak, and I don't know why, I just said, hey, you know, if I would be proud to be buried in Reçak. And that became the headline of what I said that day. And now it's been asked of me a number of times, and I always say the same thing. I know my name is associated with Reçak. Now, whether my family would like that, and they would have to come in a 10-hour flight to come and see their father, I don't know. But my wife, who I've just been married to for 1 year, and what is today's date? 24th.
24th,
in
yes.
3 days I have my first anniversary.
Okay.
And, you know, when I mentioned that to her, I thought she might say, but she agreed. She said that she has been here twice. She has seen what Reçak means to me and what I mean to Reçak, and yeah.
Yes, Mr. Ambassador, you now have a statue, you said, in Reçak, but when did you realize that you are a hero in Kosovo for what you have done in Reçak, for your contribution, and also for your contribution for Kosovo?
I must tell you that when they told me there was a statue up there, I was surprised. When we went up there for the ceremony where the Hashim Thaçi pulled down the cover, I was amazed at its size. I was amazed at how well it was done. It is a very good statue. The sculptor, who was from Tirana, I believe, obviously is very talented. And I don't know anyone else in my group that has been awarded such a thing. I also carry in my wallet a copy of a stamp that was put out here, 50 cents of a euro. And so in the States, when I'm asked to identify myself. I sometimes pull that out. Again, I don't know anyone who has a stamp.
Yes.
So anyway, no, I mean, I am overwhelmed here by people who want to pay tribute to Walker. I hope they're paying tribute to the liberation of Kosovo and the independence of Kosovo when they talk about me.
Yes, and when did you realize that you are here in Kosovo?
Oh, God.
If you remember.
I think when I went to the funeral of those who were buried in Kosovo, in Reçak, the first anniversary of the burial, in each of those ceremonies, 15,000 people gather in a village, and old men who want to kiss me, old women who want to hug me, and young people too. And I very early on, it's not something I recently learned. People saying, "Oh, you're a rock star." Okay, well, I'm not a rock star, so I have no idea quite what that means. But very early on, I realized that the name Walker meant something. There's a furniture store named Walker here,
Yes.
things like that. So I realized quite early on that my name meant something to the people of Kosovo, at least and I assume to some people on the other side, my name is known, but not favorably.
Yes, Mr. Ambassador, after the war, you have seen Kosovo achieve extraordinary success and which culminated with the Declaration of Independence. You were in Parliament on that day, and if you can tell us more for your emotions that you had on that day, seeing a new country.
One of my most memorable days is the day of independence. And as you say, I was in the balcony of the Parliament, and I watched your deputies sign the Declaration of Independence. I was impressed with a couple of things. One, the ceremony. I was impressed with the fact that there were a good number of women signing it. And one of my real prides here is watching how the women of Kosovo have come, how far they have come in the last 25 years. Lots of politicians, lots of government officials, lots of business women, lots of leaders in
Yes.
many fields. Okay, so I saw that, and I thought, wow, this is impressive. I'm watching, George Washington of Kosovo sign the Declaration of Independence. But it was when I went outside and spent that whole afternoon and evening seeing the celebrations here, and I heard about celebrations in the rest of Kosovo. It was so joyous. People were so enthusiastic about what had happened in that Declaration of Independence, and I truly shared that feeling. Now, I went to a large reception in honor of independence, and I have to admit I had a couple of drinks, and I got up to dance. I don't dance. My wife loves to dance. I don't dance with her. But that night I danced. Now, whether it was having a couple of rakias or something, or whether it was my emotions and the emotions of everyone around, I really enjoyed that evening.
Yes, and did you felt a satisfaction that seeing Kosovo independence?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the last 3 months of my being here as head of the OSCE mission, I spent in Macedonia with the refugees and going into Albania to see the refugees there. I don't know if you were old enough to, or were in the camps or anything like that, but
Yes.
The misery.
3 years old.
You were? Okay.
Yes, 3 years old, yes.
Okay, the misery, the incredibly horrible conditions, the lack of knowing what the future was bringing, and then 8 years later to be declaring independence. Wow, that was incredible.
Yes, and have you ever thought that 26 years after the war, Kosovo would look like it is today?
In November of 2000, I came back the first trip after liberation, and I brought my wife, previous wife who passed away in 2009. I brought her here to show her what Kosovo was, people I knew, that sort of thing. And we landed in Skopje and drove up from Skopje to Pristina. And passing through villages that had been completely destroyed. There were people up on the roofs, putting a new roof on, building a new home, and you could see that the population of Kosovo was going to rebuild. Now, did I ever think it was going to now have skyscrapers and malls and all that you see in Pristina and Peja and the rest of Kosovo? Did I see that was going to come within 15 years of independence? No. But the Kosovar population, in a very short time, has produced an incredible, small but independent and democratic nation. All the conditions of democracy are here. And like I say, in 15 years. So if you ask me, did I expect all that? No, not at all.
Mr. Ambassador, now we are going to talk for some different topics. Now the signers of the Independence Declaration, President Hashim Thaçi and the others, ex-KLA leaders, are in the Hague. I know that you have you followed this process and you know what is going on there, but what is your opinion for the judicial process taking place there?
In The Hague?
In Hague, yes, against the KLA leaders, Hashim Thaçi, Kadri Veseli, Jakub Krasniqi and Recep Selimi.
I can answer that very shortly in 2 words. It's a horrible injustice. I am my whole career I've been devoted to justice. Justice for poor people, justice for anyone, everyone. And when they formed the tribunal in The Hague, I was very pleased to be asked to go and testify against Slobodan Milosevic. So I was a prosecution witness. And I went there, I spent a few days testifying, and I saw a courtroom that was working and attempting to produce justice. A few years later, I'm told that there's a new tribunal there, and it's indicted the president of Kosovo, the speaker of the parliament, and a leader of the KLA. When I was here before that, I was critical of Hashim Thaçi, I was critical of Kadri Veseli. I had talks with Jakub Krasniqi during the war. I didn't agree with everything they were doing. I didn't agree with everything they were telling me. But what the international community has done to them in The Hague in terms of spending almost 10 years investigating their crimes. Number 2, holding them in detention for 3 years almost.
Yes, more than 4 years now.
Is it 4 years now?
Yes, more than 4 years, yeah.
In the United States, and I don't know if this court believes in this, but in the United States, we are very proud to say you're innocent until you're proven guilty. And if you're innocent, you're not detained. Now, there are times when you can be detained until your trial comes about. but detained for almost 4 years, you tell me? Is just impossible for me to see as being just. I know a bit about how the KLA was structured. It was not a pyramid going up to a supreme command. It was a much more diverse, much more regional set of armies. They tried to present themselves as a unified army for various reasons. I understand that. But the KLA was not a perfect chain of command up to Kadri Veseli, Hashim Thaçi, Jakub Krasniqi. And after 10 years of investigation, the court must understand that. I can't imagine where they got proof, as they claim that this was a perfect military organization and those at the top were committing crimes, war crimes. Now, in the aftermath, at liberation, were there a lot of people here who wanted to take actions against people who they thought had killed their family, or a lot of violence, I'm sure. But was that ordered by these three men or by others? I have seen no evidence of that. And to think that to avoid anyone tampering with witnesses, or to think that Hashim Thaçi, Kadri Veseli, and Jakub Krasniqi and others, yes, if they are liberated, they're going to flee and go to seek political asylum. It's ridiculous. When the accusations from the court in The Hague came out, those three men resigned their posts, went to The Hague and said, here, we're here. That's not what Milosevic did. That's not what Shinovich did. And yet the court is saying we must detain them until the trial comes about, and the trial is now underway for a long time, and the defense has not presented its defense. So I think it's a very unjust prosecution. Not only unjust, I think it's unclaimed. It shouldn't have happened, but it's happened.
Yes, Mr. Ambassador, and you have been mentioned and as one of the possible witnesses for Mr. Thaçi's defense. Are you willing to testify in this trial?
Absolutely. I've been telling his lawyers, and I assume, I would go not to testify for Mr. Thaçi or Mr. Krasniqi or Kadri Veseli. I would go to try and let the court understand the context in which liberation came, and there were hundreds of thousands of Albanians outside of Kosovo hearing about what was being done to their village, to their families, to the Kosovars. And that, as I say, in the aftermath of a civil war, there is always violence. But to think that this somehow was conducted by and instructed to by the leadership of the KLA, to me, is ridiculous. And that's what I would try and paint for the court. I volunteered to go now, today, yes, because I say, look, I'm almost 90 years of age. I might not live until the prosecution finishes its case. Let me come over and testify. If I have to do it in The Hague, let me, give me do a recording of my testimony, but the court apparently doesn't allow that.
Yes, I understand. In this final part of this interview, Mr. Ambassador, I would like to talk a little bit with you for the politics. First, what do you think for our Prime Minister, Albin Kurti? Which one, since For 26 years now, you know him, and what do you think for him as Prime Minister now?
Well, let me tell you about my knowing him. I met him within a week of arrival with the mission. He came to my office as the assistant to Adam Demaci, and he didn't say anything other than interpreted what Adam Demaci was telling me and what I was telling Adam Demaci. He was a young San Francisco hippie-looking young man with a lot of hair. Yesterday I went to a museum here, a museum I encourage everyone to go and see, right next to the Skenderbeg.
Yes, reporting house.
Yeah, exactly. And there was a big picture on the wall, and there was you couldn't see the face, but you could see the hair, but it was a totally different hairstyle. And I didn't recognize Albin Kurti. Okay. Now he's a political fellow. He's a prime minister. His hair is short. He's dressed with a suit and tie. Okay, politically, as prime minister, politically, let's say, Vet Vendosia, I tried to encourage it to become a party. It became a party. I tried to encourage people to listen to them, and they've done very well. Okay, so politically, he's obviously doing very well. Governing as prime minister, I also think he's doing well. I've heard a lot of criticism in the diaspora, here. I've heard some very strong language from people who think ill of him. I wish he would spend more time. I know he goes to a lot of political rallies, but that's talking to his Vet Vendosia followers. He comes to the United States just a couple of times that I know of.
Yes.
He speaks to the faithful in the diaspora. I really think he should come and talk more about just the success of Kosovo, not necessarily his success, but the success of Kosovo, which I don't think is being part of the propaganda that goes out of here. Propaganda in a good sense of the word. This is a success story. It's not a success story in the State Department, in the halls of our U.S. Congress. Yes, there are people who understand, but most of the people in positions now in the State Department and the government, like you, were very young when Reçak happened and when liberation took place. I really think Albin Kurti should go out more and talk to general audiences and say, here's what we, the Kosovars, have accomplished, not what we as Vet Vendosia have done that is right.
Yes, because he likes more to talk for these 4 years, the last 4 years, not what was achieved in 20 years.
Yeah, yeah. And also what he hopes to achieve in the future. One of my complaints, not about Albin Kurti, but about all the political parties here. When I first met Dr. Rugova, who at that time was sort of the president of the Albanian population of Kosovo, and then I met Dr. Rugova 3 or 4 times, and then obviously after liberation I've met the political leaders of the generation that has been in power here since liberation and independence. So I know the AAK, PDK, LDK, you name it. I don't know what the parties stand for. I know what they say in rallies, but I don't know what they're going to do if they become the government. I really don't.
Yes.
I imagine Vet Vendosia is on the left of this. I imagine Fatmir Lima and Jakub Kraljic and their party are on the sort of right side. But
Yes.
what that means, I don't know.
Yes, Mr. Ambassador, I would like to have your opinion for the action that Kosovo has taken in the north. What do you think for that? Because that was a part where our Prime Minister Albin Kurti was criticized a lot from international and also from his rivals in Kosovo.
Okay, you know, I don't think he's been criticized on the substance of what he's been doing, but more on the way he has projected his views or his reaction to international community telling him what they think he should do.
Yes.
I, like Albin Kurti, sometimes I overreact and I say stronger words than I should have. You know, the protection and making a better life for the minority communities of Kosovo, but also especially in the north, it's a big issue for the international community. Okay, I agree. But so much has been done for the minority communities here that, as far as I know, have not been done in any of the countries of the EU that have minorities. Spain has the problem with Catalonia,
Yes.
with the Basques. Spain has problems with gypsies, with Roma. And yet they come in to tell Albin Kurti that you've got to do more for the minorities here. What are they talking about? They're talking about you have to have an association of minority communities. To me, that's only saying, okay, you've got to further divide Kosovars into minority communities and other communities. That, to me, is absolutely inconsistent and going against reconciliation, which is what you try to do after a civil war.
Yes.
So, the North, to me, now, 2 days ago I had a meeting with the Prime Minister candidate of PDK. And one of the reasons I went to the rally last night was because he told me about his vision for the North. He's the mayor of Mitrovica.
Yes.
He travels into the North. He tells me about, you know, some of the problems they've had, and he tells me about his solutions or his way of approaching the North. And he's an economist, I understand,
Yes.
and his ideas mostly come on that part of the spectrum. I was impressed, as I was impressed a couple of years ago when I spoke to Bejet Pazzoli, who at that time was involved in forming a party which is now a part of the alliance of the family. And Bejet is also a businessman, and we talked about swapping borders and the North, and Bejet also impressed me with a vision he had for how Kosovo and Serbia might come together rather than continue to argue. And it was mostly an economic solution. Okay, so here's two men who have their visions for doing something different from arguing in the dialogo. I'm speaking Spanish. The dialogue.
Yes.
Over how to deal with Serbia and the international community. There are people with these ideas. 2 years ago, a year ago, I tried to put together a conference in Skopje, maybe, bringing together people to talk about Bejet Pazzoli's ideas. Get a conversation going.
Yes.
We couldn't hold it. We didn't progress.
Yes, Mr. Ambassador, my last questions are about international politics. We are going to to talk a little bit for United States of America. There we have a new president. Donald Trump is new president of United States. What do you think for Donald Trump first?
Let me just say I didn't vote for him. I've been a very careful student of what was going on in the United States over the last 4 years. To show you my expertise, my understanding of American politics, again mentioning Bejat Patsoli. 4 years ago, he told me that Donald Trump would run again, and I told him he was crazy, that would not happen, that America had had enough of Donald Trump as a politician. Over the last 4 years, every time I saw Bejat Patsoli, we would have a discussion about the political situation in the United States, and up until a month before the election, I saw Bejat Patsoli, and he told me Donald Trump is going to win. I told him he was crazy, that was impossible. He was right, I was wrong. I was disastrously wrong. I still have no explanation for how it happened. Zero. And I don't think anyone does. So, where are we? We're in a situation in which the United States, the United States, the world, NATO, the world, are waiting to see what sort of a president Donald Trump is going to be. Is he going to be the president that we have seen over the last 4 years, as he has told us what he wants to do as president? If that is the case, I am very concerned. If, as a lot of people, I know a lot of good people, smart people who voted for him,
Yes.
and they tell me, don't worry, Walker, he's going to change. He's going to be a presidential president. He's already saying things that he wants to do that are unconstitutional. 3 days ago, he took the oath to defend and uphold the Constitution of the United States. In 3 days, he's saying, I'm going to declare that people born in the United States are not American citizens, which is in the U.S. Constitution.
Yes.
So I don't know what to predict. I really don't.
Yes, and what about Richard Grenell? What do you think for him? Because he has had some clashes with the government in Kosovo.
I've never met Ambassador Grenell. I've only remember what he was involved in back when he was involved with the dialogue. Back then, I thought he was mistaken in a good number of ways. Again, what he will do, I believe, is going to be what he believes President Trump wants him to do. And I think many people who are coming into the government under President Trump, correctly, but perhaps overly so, are going to do what they think Donald Trump wants them to do. Ambassador Grenell, whatever position he holds, whatever authority he has, I hope he uses it in the right direction, which is to compliment Kosovo for being what a wonderful small country it is, taking whatever credit the United States feels it deserves for having helped Kosovo become Kosovo. If he does that, I will support him. We shall see. Again, I don't know what to predict.
Yes, Mr. Ambassador, thank you very much for your time. If you don't have anything to add.
I have absolutely nothing to ask. You've asked me all the right questions.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to have you here, and an honor for us to have you here as a guest in our show.
Well, if you want to sort of know how and why I did some of the things over the past 25 years, the book tells a part of that, okay?
Yes, I bought the book and I'm reading it, yes.
Okay, good. I can see that.
Thank you very much. Ishte kjo intervista me ambasadorin William Walker.